Supercharge community, how is it going? It's Hero Mentor with Hoardergamer. Today we have probably one of the most popular characters of Marvel Rivals, but also one of the most feared in regards to his ultimate. But we have Eliah Mountjoy on today to talk about his career and what led to him playing part of the Marvel Rivals cast. So with that being said, Eliah, we checked out your IMDb. We saw what you've done. You've been part of some pretty big projects that myself and Hoarder are fans of. But what we really want to dive into today is how this started for you. What was the moment that you're like, you know what, I got to do this for you? Like, what was the Kickstarter?
I mean, it goes back to when I was a kid, for sure. And I loved cartoons. I loved video games. So right out of the gate, I was always a fan of. Like I was telling somebody the other day, the first thing I really loved was the Bass and Rankin animated show of The Hobbit. It's like ancient. Okay, Hoarder, awesome. I already like you, Hoarder.
Sure, okay. Oh, I got to earn my respect. Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, those characters are. That's back when when cartoons could be scary, and I mean legitimately creepy.
Yes.
And there's a number of characters there that terrified me. But were gripping all the same. They were amazing characters. So Brother Theodore does Gollum. Daniel Boone did Smog. I mean, there's all these old school, legit actors that did these voices, and that's the first thing I can remember going back and being like, what is that? So then I was never a strong reader. I needed comic books because I needed to have a visual interface, something that because I was just too ADD or too dyslexic or whatever the combination of my weirdness I have is. I couldn't just sit down and thumb through a novel, much as I would have liked to. And so there's another thing where I was kind of already getting into seeing a voice with a face. And then my brother, who was really good at, is really good at reading books, he turned me on to a book, and it was like a fantasy called Sword in the Shannara. And it was just nerdy enough for me to be able to get into. And it's a total fantasy. So I started reading that, and my girlfriend at the time had this laptop that you could record yourself on. Like, it had a little microphone built in. And I just found myself clicking on that record button and doing the shade Bremen and bringing these characters to life and playing it back and going, oh, that take is not as good as that take. Why is that take not as good or it's not what I thought in my head. So you got flash forward to the point where I'm really actually seriously starting to get into voiceover. I had a number of people tell me, you should do voiceover, because the band I'm in or whatever, I was screaming the night before, and then so I am extra hoarse and crunchy, and people are like, oh, you should do radio, or you should do voices. But of course, the more classes I took, the more I find it's so much less to do with your voice than it is with what you can do with your voice, which is the acting. So I was able to take some theater. I wish I was able to do that in high school and then in college, but I was reared in a house of sports. So, I could never be like, I'm going to the stage. Or I couldn't even be like, I'm going to the stage. I could never get to the stage. But when I saw my fellow friends, my students in the school play, I was always like, wow, that's Brent. Brent just singing in the rain. Oh man, it's amazing. So I guess I had a late start when it came to kind of studying acting. But by the time I finally had moved to San Francisco and was going to a conservatory there and learning Shakespeare and Stanislavski eventually I knew I was going to have to move to Los Angeles if I really wanted to get serious about this, and did some on camera, but I just really found my footing in voiceover, and I liked that it was something different every day, and it suited my emotional disposition, my intellectual disposition. I could kind of, it occupied just the right amount of space, and I don't know. I really liked it. Most of other people that are in the voiceover community are really cool. We're just talking about Jordan, talking about Joe. Really cool dudes, just chill dudes, and they just happen to be really talented on the side, and it's just a pleasure to be in the community. But I consider myself super lucky to be in particular Marvel Rivals, because the cast is stars and stripes, and
it's a matter of who's who, like, really.
Yeah.
But
what my agent said.
I have to, yeah, exactly. Like, it's a powerful cast. I do have to relate to something you said, that you grew up and you struggled with reading, and I had the same thing, but mine wasn't comics. It was pro wrestling magazines.
Nice.
So my father would get me all the wrestling magazines he could, and that is what I would focus on reading. So, if anyone has a struggle like that, it's a very common, dyslexia, ADHD, and but it's something that you can feel hindrance with, like in regards to social anxiety. So when you got into the industry, did you ever have any struggles with that, being that you struggled with reading and so forth?
Yeah, it was something I really had to be like, I'm gonna have to get better at this. If I want to read for a living, it's basically what it is. And it's also not just reading; it's taking in information, processing it in my vessel, and then having it come out as a character or whatever. So yeah, that was something I some years ago was like, okay, I'm going to need to get really serious about doing what I can. It's like if I want to be a hurdler or a wrestler, I was like, there's going to be some things that I'm going to have to get used to doing. If I'm going to be an athlete, I'm going to have to try and eat as well as I can. I'm going to have to prioritize sleep over gaming. I'm going to have to stop drinking Mountain Dew at the middle of the night. The list went down for me. And the list was long. For me in particular, it's a long list of things that I have to do to kind of get myself into the place where I can be in a place where I can try and give a performance that's meaningful, first to me, and then to the project, and to the director and my peers, and etc. But it's a daily thing. I got to try and just do what I can, and it just starts with one step. What can I do today? What can I do right now? Because I would get really overwhelmed with everything. It's just too much to do, and then paralysis by analysis. But somebody gave me this really great advice, which was tend to the part of the garden that you can reach. Which is, but what about the weeds in the back? Well, I should just not do anything, I guess. And that was my approach to it. But if it's like, you can figure out those weeds later, let's get the weeds that are right here. And okay. And then somehow that's built momentum for me to be like, okay, I kind of got this little patch cleared, Now I'm ready to take on the next thing, and then the next thing, and because left to my own devices, I tend to be a night owl. I tend to get completely dissolved into whatever project I'm doing. Not eat, not drink, not go to the bathroom, not take care of myself. So I have to set little reminders and be like, you have 50 minutes to do this. And then that bell's going to go off, and then you've got 50 minutes to do the next thing. And I always rebelled against structure. No, I'm I rail against it. But now I'm like, I need it. And when it's self-imposed, I can punch myself all I want, but it's like, so it keeps me focused and it keeps me moving, but it also keeps it fresh and, ever changing, and I don't get stagnant, and I'm not like bored, this again. It's like, okay, all right, now it's this. So it's little tips and tricks I've learned to keep from tripping over myself.
Totally. Like, we relate so much because I remember I liked a story that you posted on Instagram, and it was like my time, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, he's awake. I'm awake. Now it makes sense. We're basically two peas in the same pod here. Like, I don't feel bad now liking that because it obviously sends you a DM saying, Hero Mentor like this. And I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't do that at 2 o'clock in the morning. But now it's like, that's prime time.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a struggle when you have to get into voice acting and read, because I had the same struggle where it's not a matter of focusing so much, but it's a matter of comprehension. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of, what the hell did I just read? Now I got to go back again and read 2 or 3 pages. And so I can understand how that could be. And you mentioned it's a struggle you still have to this day, which you've shared some ways that you have helped. Hoarder he also has some struggles as well that are relevant to that as well. So it's kind of like we all relate to this, unfortunately. It's but you have a good support system. I do want to touch base on the fact that you said, as an example, to be a wrestler when technically you were one in the WWE 2K games. Mr. Gabriel Slade, who as a pro wrestling gamer fanatic, I hated that character so much, which was the intent. But it's like when you see your IMDb page and you see all the characters that you have portrayed and performed, you realize how much of a skill and a talent that voice acting really is. And with that being said, there has to be some daily techniques or some trainings that you do to help you through. So what's like a day-to-day for you in regards to preparing for auditions and so forth?
Like I was saying, I started kind of with the part of the garden I could tend to and built up some steam. And now I do have a kind of a regimen that I get to. The most important thing is sleep.
Yes.
The most important thing is sleep. And this is it's a daily thing for me, just like the next couple of things that are of equal importance or almost equal: hydration and diet. Because if I'm eating like too much dairy, too much high fructose corn syrup really messes me up. If I've got dietary restrictions that if I'm eating the wrong thing, not only do I feel like shit, I begin to sound like shit. Yeah. And I just get all messed up. So sleep, nutrition, and hydration is like I can work on that right now. Do I want to work on that? No. But it's like, so at the first part of the day, I'll get the hydration going, and I've got a whole regimen, which I don't want to bore your listeners or you guys to the nth about like every little thing I do. Maybe we'll do a whole other podcast on like what, but I mean I'll do nasal rinses and then sprays and gargles, and then I get my body moving by either a walk or a spin or just just get the blood going, and I've got breathing exercises and straw phonation and jaw stuff and this Feldenkrais, relaxing, releasing, getting your body into an alignment, reading out loud every day, just something. I start with something I enjoy because, like you're saying, I'll get paragraphs, pages in and be like, what did I just read? And go back and get right back to the same place and be like, what did I just read? And go back, and I'm just in this loop, Mm-hmm. The way I get out of that loop is, all that means to me is I'm not very interested in what I'm reading.
100%.
Because if I'm interested in it, I don't even remember food or the bathroom or the meeting I'm missing right now. It's just gone, because I'm like all on. So if I'm like, I'm reading this and I just can't get it. There's something I got from Jim Quick. I don't have a pen sitting around here, but he will, with his finger or a pen, trace the words. And for me, somehow it worked. Like I'm just like, it like grounds me or connects me. I don't know exactly what it is. It's kind of like holding a script versus just seeing it on a screen. It's like when you have it in your hands, it's like, I have the script. it's part of me, and you feel more, versus like, oh, I'm like kind of detached from it, and how do I, because the whole thing is always, how do I take these words on a page or a screen and light them up, lift them up, make them alive, not make it sound like I'm just reading stuff off of a. And so all these little things that I do throughout the day are aimed to get me closer to the point where I can read this word, the sentence, the paragraph, and illuminate it, make it seem like there's a real character, person living in the moment somewhere, talking to somebody, feeling a way about it, and responding to that in the moment. It's very rudimentary. I don't want to use the term rudimentary. It's essential. It's essential acting. It's because it's what we do. It's what we do in real life. It's how we are. You say something, makes me feel a certain way, makes me think of something. I throw it back to you, and we were playing in a game of tabletop tennis, or whatever analogy you want to use.
We're doing it right now.
Yep. And you mentioned tracing the script with your finger. That's really good. That actually helps with memorization. I've used that before, like different things I had to do, like with little plays and stuff like that. So that's really cool. It's basically a more active thing, because even though you're like doing and performing and everything, it makes it even more active and less passive if you're kind of doing that. It really helps with the memorization, I find.
Yeah. In the same way that like writing, they say writing.
I do prefer writing. Yes.
Yeah, like I've heard the same thing. Like if you're gonna type it, your brain registers writing more. Like it's like whatever, epigenetically, genealogically, however, it's like ingrained in our neurology. Writing it out helps it seep into your brain more. And you're like, oh, that doesn't matter. But then you go like, oh, well, it kind of did. Even if it mattered 10%, well, it matters. And you do that plus another 12% and a 13 here and a 7 there, and pretty soon you're 50% better at it. You're like, oh, wow. Okay, here's my grab bag. I'll do these 7 things every day. Oh, there's another thing I can do. Add it to my bag. And, you kind of build that momentum. But I mean, for me, sleep was like the number one thing. I'd never slept well. I was always up late. And I was like, oh, I got, and that had a huge effect on my ability to just focus. Huge.
Yeah, I'm a night owl myself, so like I'm usually up till like 3 or 4 a.m. So yes, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, Hoarder doesn't like when we have 9 o'clock podcasts in the morning.
They're rough, man. They're rough.
I make it happen, but I'm just not used to that type of schedule.
They're rough, man. If I got like a 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock session, I'm like, because it means I got to wake up at 6, because I got to be like. I gotta like shock myself and be like, oh, okay. cold plunge. I do a cold plunge to like.
Oh, love it.
That'll wake you up. I mean, it sucks every time, but then it's like, okay, I'm awake.
Do you ever find yourself in a kind of like a paralysis mode? For example, let's say you have a meeting at 9 a.m. Do you find it where, let's say you're up at 6. So from 6 till 8:30 or 6 8:45, you can't do anything because you're so mentally prepared for that. Okay, I'm the exact same way. Like for example, this interview we scheduled, I told my kids after I cooked supper, I was like, okay, just let me have my space here. I can't literally do anything else until this meeting. Yeah. Okay, so that's common for you as well.
I mean, I think it's one of those traits where I do find myself clearing stuff out of the path before something where I'm like, I gotta really prepare for this. But I found like as a performer, I think it's good to clear your space and let your vessel fill up. Empty it before you fill it up, basically. But it can be a trap too, because you realize, it's the same thing as getting nervous. The reason I'm getting nervous is because I want to do a good job. And I feel like if I don't do a good job, I've failed. and I wanted to do a good job. So then I'll feel bad about myself. So I'm nervous about feeling bad about myself. And if I'm doing things that like prepare me for that, like don't talk to me, I'm in my special space, you know, like I'm prone to do. It kind of it takes me out of the moment in a way.
Gotcha.
It's all a weird balance, man, and it's different for everybody. You know, there's some things we are the same, some things we're different, and so it's like some of the best advice I was given is take what works for you and leave the stuff that doesn't.
What would you say is your favorite acting technique? Like method acting, sense memory? What would you say you like to use the most?
I use this technique all the time. It was given to me by my teacher, Philip Bennett, who was a pupil of the Stanislavski lineage. And Stanislavski used this thing called the magic if.
Okay.
And the magic if is if you had to pick up this scepter Ankh and say these words to the queen with these people watching, and you had just previously been told that you'll be put to death if you do this again, you know, the given circumstances, what would you do? What would you do if? How would you do it if? And it can immediately bring me to like, because you have to get out of this like, oh, suddenly I pick up the Ankh, and it becomes just a very like generic performance, you know?
Sure.
The if makes it personal for me. What would I do? Okay, then I can add on, well, I'm also a medieval peasant. I'm missing an arm. This guy's trying to kill me. You know, whatever it is. And I can kind of, because those things aren't me, but it has to come from within. It has to be personalized. So I think the magic if is something that I use all the time.
That's awesome. I had a really great acting teacher. His name was Adolphus Ward. He passed away a few years ago. He did a number of different projects in Los Angeles, but I was lucky enough when he was in Wisconsin to have a couple classes with him at the University of UW-Milwaukee, University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. But yeah, that's awesome. The magic if is very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Magic if. I like that because it's like, it just creates that connection that makes it personalization for you. I like that a lot. I'm not going to use that with anything because I don't really do voice acting, but I can definitely use that for something else. That's some pretty badass advice.
Yeah.
So when it comes to auditioning, there is that rejection. I understand. So a little bit of backstory. I used to do background acting with the idea of becoming an on-screen actor. However, I learned I wasn't comfortable with the audition, not getting audition. I was like, you know what? The destination is awesome. The journey is not for me. So I understand you have to have that like passion, that genuine passion for the project. So how have you learned to deal with rejection or not being accepted for a role, if you prefer that wording?
That's a really great question. Because that's another thing I deal with every day. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's a special balance because how do you give a shit and then not give a shit?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It's like you can't, you can't do that, you know?
That's a great way of wording it. I've never had a word like that before. I like that.
Because you, like you were just saying, you have to care about it in order to do your best, but then you have to like let it go. So I think some of the some of the stuff that has worked the best for me is having something to do that I enjoy right after. So we're talking about auditions. So, you know, I've got to do my auditions. Sometimes I have to do them at night. That's not the greatest time because then you can go to sleep and you're just like, oh God, I should have done this better. I should have done it that way. And then you're spiraling. So I try to get them. So I'm doing them in the day, and then I can be like, after this, I'm gonna go on my favorite hike, my bike ride. I'm gonna eat my favorite lunch. I'm gonna get on a phone and talk to somebody that I really like. I'm gonna color in my coloring book, something that's like, you know, uplifting and rejuvenating. It makes me feel good and puts me in a good headspace. Because if you're not in a good headspace, you're also not going to do your best work. If you, and that's the trap. You're like, dang it, I really need this. And then pretty soon you really sound like you really need this. And I've had my agent tell me that. It's like your read sounds like you really need this. Like it really need this. It's like, and casting will pick right up on that. And they understand. They know what it's like. But their job is to cast the best possible candidate for that position, and the person who's really needy is generally not the best candidate for that. It's the person who could just live in that moment and be that character right then. They have the best chance of then doing that in the job. I try to distract myself with something enjoyable and fun to do afterwards. But man, sometimes there are those jobs where I'm like, oh, I really wanted that one. I really did. And you just don't get it. And that's just how life is. And that's part of it. It's like I'm another proponent of not trying to dispense of the hardships. That is part of life. If you don't have any hardships, it's like eating a chocolate sundae every day. Oh, it's eventually you're going to hate it and it's going to make you sick. And you, as much as you love chocolate shakes or sundaes or whatever it was I just said, it's like you can't eat that every day. It's only every so often when it's special. You need to have the night to have the day. And so I'm like, I shouldn't be shielding myself from feeling insecure, from feeling bad. I just shouldn't be feeling that way all the time. I shouldn't be feeling totally confident all the time. I shouldn't be eating chocolate sundaes all the time. You come in and out of it. And that's the human experience. And that's what makes everybody go, oh, yeah, I know what it's like to want something and not get it. I know what it's like to eat a chocolate sundae. And then we relate with each other. And then we build that special bond. And then we're fulfilled, I think. Then we're like, oh, it's different than eating a chocolate sundae, but it's that itch that can't be scratched unless you have this like cool community where you connect and you're like, oh, I feel you, man. I know exactly what that's like. And it doesn't make it better and poof, it's gone, but because I know somebody out there feels the same way, I feel less alone, and that is enough.
100%. I like this kind of conversations because it opens you up, makes you humanized and vulnerable. For example, Yuri Lowenthal, when he was on about a year and some ago, he spoke about his struggle with imposter syndrome. Now, when you think of Yuri Lowenthal, you think of Peter Parker / Spider-Man, and you're like, how can this guy who has 400 plus credits, has been part of some great franchises, how can he have imposter syndrome? How can he struggle with this? And you're like, oh wow. And then you feel like Christina Aguilera, who says that before she goes on stage she gets very nervous and has anxiety attacks at times. And it's like, we're all human. Like we all, rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria is very common with ADHD and mental health. So it's like, you mentioned you dealt with that too. That's why I really wanted to bring up rejection with you, because I understand. And that was the last straw for me with my acting career, was when I had an audition for a Liam Neeson movie and I didn't get it. And I was like, you know what? With my dopamine and my search for dopamine, I cannot handle being excited for something and then not being excited. So like you said, how can you give a shit and then not give a shit? I was like, you know what? This journey is not for me. And I think it's important to have that self-awareness and I understand, you get it.
That's amazing. If people could hear what you just said, it's not worth it for me. Because everybody gets this people will stick around in the industry for way too long and get way too messed up in the head and then start cutting people around them because they're just trying to be chosen because they didn't get that love when they were kids. Many times it's just as simple as that. Yeah. And then you stack on top of it neurodivergent thing where you don't handle rejection so well on top of it, or maybe that's why you've got that condition, probably why I have it. But if people could just be like, do you know what is even better? Do you know what is an even stronger choice? To know yourself well enough that this is not good for me and I'm going to do something that is. That's incredible. There's so much power in that. There's so much self-awareness. That's a message that we should really put out there and project to people and be like, not everybody is going to be LeBron James. Not everybody's going to build rockets. Not everybody's going to do brain surgery. Not everybody's going to be a teacher because the fingernails on the chalkboard are just too much, or dealing with the children is too much, or whatever it is. It's like one of these quotes I always come back to is it's a Shakespeare quote. And it's this above all things, to thine own self be true. I think that if we adhered to that, we'd be able to take better care of ourselves, and then we'd be in a position to take better care of each other and our immediate family and friends, and then our community at large. If we just knew ourselves well enough to be true to ourselves. So, Dave, I really respect that.
It took a lot to learn that because, like I said, I was loving the destination, the idea of being part of a Liam Neeson movie that I was filming here in Alberta, Canada. And then I realized that I was chasing the eagle, right? I was like, I want to do this because it's going to look good on my resume. It's going to look good and make me a superstar. But I was like, but can I do this over and over again? And it's just self-awareness. It's such a powerful form of empathy. A powerful form of emotional intelligence that just is not practiced enough. And in your line of work, there's probably, you don't have to name them, but there's probably been some roles that you took on because it sounded fun, but then you did them and you're like, you know what? Kind of glad I didn't really get that because it wasn't really me. Like, chasing the ego can be a very dangerous path to go on. But as neurodivergent people, we tend to be very aware because it's like, this makes me uncomfortable. And when we're uncomfortable, we leave. It's not a matter of, I like to be in this position for long. It's like, no, I got to get the hell out of here because I am not comfortable. I'm not well.
Yeah.
But based on your IMDb, though, it seems like you have a general idea of what you like to do because I saw a lot of credits that were basically aligned in a way. So when you're given a sheet or you're given some suggestions, what are some characters you really want to play? It could be franchise related, Star Wars, whatever it may be. But like, what are some dream roles you really want to have the chance to get?
I mean, I definitely have a list.
Don't we all?
But like you're just saying, if you look at my list of credits, these aren't necessarily ones that I'm like, I'll take these and I'll leave the rest. I'm only I'm here to work. I'll take the credits wherever I can get them, and if they're only in like in a super extreme case would I be like, I probably am not going to do this. It's like, I'm not going to take somebody else's role if they're not doing it for some reason, or if this is like a really shitty character in a game that's like, this is, it's not ultimately going to lift people up. It's just meant to break. I'm like, I'm okay. Or it's just going to fry my voice or whatever, What I think is interesting about that is these are the characters that I got. And that's a reflection of who I am, what I bring to a project, and casting going, this is going to be a good fit, and let's go this way. And I'm just like, I'm just overjoyed because I got something I got to do. Because for years and years and years, it wasn't that way. This is not an overnight thing for me. It just,
of course,
it's like a 20-year thing, and like you're saying, it's just wrought with failure and being broke and being in the dumps and just feeling like shite about myself and trying to be like, well, then do you want to do this or do you not want to do it? And I don't, for me, it was like, yeah, I'm not done. I'll take another punch.
Again.
And again.
Again.
Yes. Well, nice callback. But
It's fun. Oh, sorry, Howard, go on.
well, no,
in all kinds of performance, it's basically like being a glutton for punishment. Like you're basically like, yeah, I guess you punch me in the left cheek, punch me in the right cheek, I guess, hit me in the eye, but I'll keep on going. I'll keep on going.
I don't know. It's like, I mean, you make a funny joke, right? Like, again, but it's also like, yeah, I'm used to taking a bunch of punches again and again and again. And it's like, that's where that comes from. That's how I feel like when I get punched in. So when so I don't know. The other thing that helps with this, like what you're talking about, like having to just not constantly be under the crucifix of just 90% of what you audition for not getting. I mean, even if you're getting 10%, you're killing it. If you're, most of us are 2, 3, 4, 5%. But to be really, it sounds trite, but it's being grateful for all the things I do have, all the things that are working right. Like my body, there's been times where I've been too sick or broken or psychologically where it's just like, I'm not in a place to be able to do anything. Mm-hmm. So when I am, it's like, wow, I can't take this for granted. I can't, because this could just all go away. And if I don't have my health, I really have nothing.
Exactly.
And
100%.
even then, there's people who do have health conditions that carry on, and that's when I'm like, get yourself in shit. You get your stuff in order, man. The kind of strength that is required for an individual to do that, you can do it. You can pick these weeds right here. You can do it. And it kind of gets me out of this like, oh, it's so hard. It gets me out of that mindset. And so that's the pity party.
Self-pity. Yeah. I was going to say a good example is Jeremy Renner after his accident with the I can't remember what it was, but that vehicle.
Snow plow.
Yeah, snow plow or whatever, but and for him to come back even stronger after a year.
Incredible.
It's insane. Robert Downey Jr., all the stuff that he went through in his past and come back. So these stories matter.
Right.
Now, before we lose a track of time here, we don't get a chance to talk about it because Hoarder and I are avid players of Marvel Rivals.
Nice.
That doesn't mean we're great players, but we play it a lot.
Awesome.
And I want to talk briefly about a story. So my daughter is in grade 9. Her and her friends were walking through the hallway. Now, her friend behind her, Taylor, out of nowhere, yells, "Armed and dangerous." And my daughter at the time wasn't playing Marvel Rivals, but she was aware of it because I was playing it. And she turned around and she's like, "Are you serious? Now you're doing that?" So that is how catchy this game is getting, that now teenagers at ages of 12 to 16 or so are picking up all these catchphrases, all these ultimate battle cries, and they're saying it to each other. And now my daughter is about, I'm going to say almost 100 hours in. She's level 40 already, and she's hyper fixated. She made it a point to tell me that her worst mains that people play are Punisher, Winter Soldier, Scarlet Witch, and Black Panther, Spider-Man, and Iron Fist. But consistently, Winter Soldier is on that top 5 list every single time. You mentioned that you were always a lover of video games. You love video games. It must be ironic now, though, that you do a lot of voicing in video games and you don't have the time to play those video games because of all the work you're doing.
I know.
But a lot of your co-stars, such as Jordan Reynolds and Joe Zija, and I believe it's Danny Marin. I may be getting that wrong, but he plays Namor. They play on Twitch live.
Yeah.
Jordan, I don't know if you saw it or not, but Jordan recently shared a video of him playing with a member of the Marvel Rivals community, and he was asking the person he's playing with how his impression of Adam Warlock was.
I saw that, yeah.
And the fan, you saw that, and I was like, this is so awesome that these voice actors are able to do this with the community. But you're part of Marvel in a large IP in a very well-known character such as Winter Soldier, where kids, teenagers are walking through the hallways saying your catchphrases.
Yeah.
That's a huge win, in my opinion, huge win. So how does it feel for you? Like, how was this journey if share what you can, don't share what you can't. But how was this journey for you becoming Winter Soldier?
I don't know, because there were a couple of characters up till now where people in the gaming community would reach out and be like, "Hey, really like the work you did." And I'll be like, "Oh wow, cool, thanks." I game with my brothers when I can, because we grew up gaming, and in the pandemic we striked it back up, and as a way to kind of ground ourselves and cope with what was happening. So and we're kind of Irish, I guess, in the way where it's like, if you're Irish and you get a hit single, or you're a top 10 album, the Irish people will just still tell you, you're still shite though, and they don't ever let you get an overinflated sense of self. And my brothers, they do real work in the world with NGOs, with helping people. It's not that like what I do doesn't. I think that I think it does help people, but they are going there and building hospitals and changing their entire life to make that happen. So it does keep me from my head overinflating in any particular way. But I do have to say, I think it's really cool that the kids are doing that. I'm just really damn lucky. I'm just really damn lucky, and I stayed in it and took enough punches for long enough that again yes that something happened. And I got lucky that I got the role. I got lucky that I got Bucky, because I would have taken any role. I would have been Squirrel Girl 100%. I would have taken, just to be in it. And so, but something about who I am, having felt ostracized, marginal, outcast as a kid, that's kind of Bucky. He has he's got. So things just kind of aligned in a way where it worked. And another thing I got lucky on was that his ult just kicks a bunch of ass. I have nothing to do with that. Yeah. I've zero. But in some of the sessions, because there's a lot of people online making sure that what we're doing is, they've done a great job individuating the characters and balancing things out in a way that they all, oh my God, I can't imagine what that process would be like. I see Hoarder, I feel like he's glimpsed the abyss of what that would look like, just trying to balance things. Hoarder, you give off really good D&D vibes.
Diablo.
A huge fan of Diablo, Star Wars, and Marvel and DC, actually.
Okay. Anyways, I that was my ADD.
Speaking of squirrels.
No, but in the sessions they'd be like, you're everybody's liking playing Winter Soldier right now because he can do this ult that goes again and again and again, and people are really having fun playing with that. And like Jordan has sent me stuff, Jordan Reynolds, where he's good about just being kind of in the community and keeping his fingers out, the sensors out there, and seeing what's happening. And he sent me some stuff where I'm like, the kids walking around school or in the mall.
Yep.
Again.
Yes.
And it's it's fun. It's fun to see, and I think it's a fun ride to be part of a cultural thing where it brings people together. A call and response thing can happen. I say this, you say that. That's I think what art should do. It should bring us together, and to be in any way a part of that is really humbling for me.
Now, is it safe to assume that the recording for the Marvel Rivals was done in your home studio, or did you have group sessions?
Nope, neither of those. In fact, in VO, rarely are there group sessions.
Yes.
Only
That's what I've been told about a lot.
Yeah, okay. So, like, animation, sometimes, and I guess not that much anymore because of COVID and all that, but like looping, Walla, that kind of stuff from movies, they'll still get a group of 8, 10, or 12, 20 people in a room. But no, I didn't see anybody except for the director and the engineer. You know, and that's how most of them are. Most of them are interfacing like this through a screen. So, I mean, that's another thing. That's another thing of having to try and that I'll put in my day, because that's what happened during the pandemic, right? Suddenly we're seeing everybody through this little window.
Yeah.
And if you go out and you meet them now, because I'm taller than the average person, so they're like, you know, and I'm like, because we're all seeing each other like this. It's a totally different experience. It's totally different. So one of the things I have to make sure that I do is get out and talk with people and just exchange atoms, you know, like, because otherwise you just start losing your grip.
Yep.
You're just talking to like a thing. I have to my whole job is to make it seem like I'm a human or an alien or whatever it is, a cyborg in this case, where I can relate. I have emotions. And if I'm day after day after week after month after year depleting myself of that, what have I allowed myself to become? It's a strange thing. That's why voice acting is a strange vocation, because you got to be okay. In fact, this is one of the big things I wasn't sure I was going to be able to. This is probably the number one thing I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I asked a friend, who was then my mentor, if I could take him out to lunch and just ask him about his day. What do you do? How do you go about it? Why do you do that? And he's like, it's a lot. You're spending all your time alone. And even if somebody's with you, they're on the other side of the wall or through the glass or through a screen. So you're not like in solitary confinement, but you're alone in a booth that doesn't sound acoustically like it does anywhere else. So that's weird. Like, you know, you're like, huh, huh, huh. It sounds weird. You already sound, you know, then you're forced to listen to the sound of your own voice hour after hour, you know. You gotta, like, there's all these like weird things you gotta get over. Or I was like, I don't know if because I was working as a bartender at the time. So I was having all these interactions, and, you know, I was a very outgoing kind of person, but a lot of that has changed. Like, now I'll go to somebody's birthday at a bar, and I'm there half an hour, and I'm just like peeling my skin off my face. It's too, and maybe it's because I spent so much time at a bar, to be fair, but it's just too much. It's too much. You know, it's just too much to everything. So I don't know. It's like there's different seasons and different times for different things. And I can tell that the times that I was working at a bar and staying up late and having to wake up early day after day after week after month after year was not great for my head. And to bring it full circle, like we were talking about at the beginning, one of the big things when I was able to not have to work at a bar was sleep. And I was like, I couldn't believe how much that affected my focus. I couldn't believe it. And
I can understand it, because when I'm up till 4 or 5 in the morning, and I'm up at 7 or 8 with my kids, I have a severe energy dump around 12:30 p.m. where I'm just like, whoa, I need to have a nap. And for those who are neurodivergent, napping is in itself a huge task, because it's like you lay there and you're like, sleep. It's already been an hour. I need to sleep. Like, I've already wasted an hour tossing and turning. I do need to ask Eliah, behind you on your left-hand side, is that The Rock, Vin Diesel? Who is that?
That's Captain Kurt Hansen, Colonel Kurt Hansen. He's the character I played in Cyberpunk.
Okay,
awesome.
I didn't recognize it at all, but
yeah, now they
shade.
Yeah, now they look at it like this. It does kind of look like The Rock from here.
It looks like Hobbs from Fast and the Furious.
Hobbs. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yeah, no, that's Kurt Hansen, and so that was one of the ones where People were like, "Dude, you really scared the shit out of me. You really scared the shit out of me." And I was like, that's really cool because like we were saying at the beginning, Gollum with Brother Theodore really scared the shit out of me. It really scared the shit out of me. And so that was something that was introduced into me where I was like, cartoons and video games can do that.
100%.
You can scare the shit out of somebody. It's like, do that. That's cool. Do it. So there's certain things I do and certain things I don't do, but yeah, that was one of them.
Like when I was a kid.
Oh, sorry.
Real quick though, like when I was a kid, they had the Black Cauldron, they had Labyrinth, and they don't make movies like that anymore. The Never-Ending Story. Yes.
Oh, the horrors.
What have I got right here?
Awesome.
I've got
That's
the Orin.
Fantastic.
Because those movies you just rattled off, I grew up on that shit, man.
Yeah.
And it formed me.
Right there.
Like Black Cauldron. You can't even get that now.
I know.
They scrubbed it.
Yeah.
Because it was so horrific. Disney was like, no, this is not in our catalog. It's gone. But that movie was horrific. That was terrifying.
That was awesome, yeah.
Yeah. Dark Crystal.
Oh God, the Dark Crystal. That's actually one of my favorites of the Jim Henson studio films. Yeah.
You guys are mentioning movies that I know of but have never watched.
Definitely see the Dark Crystal. It's timeless. It is so good.
I can't see Black Cauldron apparently, but
I don't know how you'd be able to find. Hopefully, you can find that because they did get rid of that. Or they like
see me. I was.
It's not on Disney
Plus.
Plus.
Zombies. I was in the zombies.
Yeah.
For example, Pet Sematary, the original, scarred me for life.
Dude, me too.
I can't do anything with kids. Possessed children, dead children.
Me too, dude.
Real live children. Like I'm just like no, instantly. But I will say that Winter Soldier did scare me with my first interaction with his ultimate because I saw two of my teammates get it again, and it was like slow motion where I'm like, oh, he's coming to me now. And it's like slow motion. So it can. His ultimate is really scary because you don't know when it's coming until he yells again, and you're hoping that God it doesn't hit you. Another one that is really scary for me in Marvel Rivals is by our good friend Eric Bra, Moon Knights. The moon will haunt you like that. Like when you hear that call sign, you're done.
Yeah. I don't.
But
know
I have to.
I don't know.
I've only talked to him on Instagram. I love his beard. His beard game is so strong. He's his voice is wicked. But as we said, the voice cast for this game is tremendous. Of who's who, and Liam O'Brien, Yuri Lowenthal, she plays Tails, Colleen O'Shaughnessy. It's crazy talent that you are part of. It's a cool thing to see your name along those names in IMDb. Like I will say, one of my greatest achievements though with background acting is being with Tim Roth and Christina Hendricks on the TV show 10 Star. That I did love, just being able to associate with them and talk to them. But the journey itself, no, thank you. I can't do that. I don't have that skill that you've learned, Eliah, to just be like, I love this. I can't get punched in the face again and again and again. I can't do it. So huge props to you.
Thank you.
Is there anything upcoming that you can speak about that you are participating in?
A lot of the games we can't talk about because just NDA, but also the strike that's still going on.
Yes.
Oh yes.
So that's an unfortunate situation. But there's some dubs that I'm in. One that just came out on Disney Plus called Ishura. I play this guy, Torowa the Awful, and he was a really fun character to play. He's got all these different swords. I didn't grow up super into anime, as you might imagine. I might have been. I should have been, but I guess video games and comic books captured me before that did. But like Gundam, there's some Gundam really got me, like the mechs and stuff. Oh, those are so cool. And there's a couple other Disney Plus dubs that are coming out. I don't think I can mention them because they haven't mentioned it. And Disney is, of course, super tight about
very
that.
tight.
Yes.
Yeah, but fortunately,
don't want Tom Holland.
They're definitely not litigious at all.
Right. Exactly, man. Exactly. Don't mess with the mouse.
Yeah, don't mess with the mouse.
But I'm in some commercials and stuff like I guess right now there's the Monopoly's coming out with a new add-on to their board to mod the classic Monopoly. And
oh wow.
Yeah, they're
interesting.
I got a chance to I did one spot for them, and then they were going to do five other people to have some different stuff. But the Hasbro came back and said, we've been market researching and testing the voices, and they like, yours tested really well. So we're doing a bunch more with you. And I was
nice.
like, thank God.
That's awesome.
Because anytime you get a gig as an actor, you're just like, thank you. So I don't know, maybe you hear my voice out there doing that, and a couple other commercials, but yeah, so I've tried to diversify a little bit into genres so that, like what's happening now, doesn't just take the legs out from underneath you completely, and you can kind of continue to work in some way. But it's a strange industry, man. Mm-hmm. It's fickle. It's constantly shifting. If it's not one thing, it's the other. And there's been plenty of times where I'm like, maybe I should just go be happy somewhere. and you made the decision, man. So that was the right one. So and thank you for saying so. I think that's a really powerful message, and people need to hear that. A lot of people need to hear that.
100%. Where can people follow you?
My name.
You?
My name or my handles, Eliah Mountjoy, ELIAH MOUNTJIY. And no, that's not my porn handle. That's my real name. I've been asked that so many times.
You'd be called Eliah Mountain of Joy if that was the case.
Oh my God.
You can only imagine how many times I got called that.
I saw the name too, and I was like,
exactly.
Good old chuckle.
Just the side glance and the chuckle.
Totally. Well,
I know what that means.
Hoarder, go on.
Oh, so one question I did have. So I actually took a 6-week voiceover course and was basically studying voiceover. One fear I have, though, is I am disabled. So are you able to sit and do voices? Do they allow that? Because for the course, they made it sound like you had to stand constantly. I can only stand for like 10, maybe 15 minutes at the most.
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, there's only a few instances where you have to, but most times people find a workaround. I mean, I know some people that are of the highest order actors. You would recognize their names and definitely the projects they've worked on, and they sit down. They request a stool.
Really?
And it's like you're just gonna have to. You know, when you sit, it's different how you hold your embouchure and your
diaphragm and everything.
Yeah. But I mean, I fucked up my back 2 years ago, and I like bad. I thought I messed myself up for good. I had to go to all kinds of rehab and stuff, but I was in the middle of this game where, you know, they're on a deadline, and they got to deliver. So I'm like, oh my, and I'm playing one of those characters that like swings a sword. So I have to like,
oh wow.
And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Like, and I was basically, I wasn't sitting, I was laying, you know what I mean? And the microphone all the way cranked back. But I found a way somehow to be like, here's what I sound like swinging a sword without really moving a muscle. And making too much chair noise. But yeah, man, I mean, the only thing you can't do in voiceover is if you don't have vocal cords. I think that would be the limiting factor.
Okay.
You know, like, I wouldn't let that stop me at all. Especially because like you might do a lot of announcer stuff, you know, commercials, promo, narration. You actually want to be, you know, very contained and still for that. You don't want to be all over the place for that. So I wouldn't let that stop me at all.
Thank you very much for that. Because one of the things I'm looking at is, like I said, I'm disabled, and I don't want to get really political, but the safety net for disabled people might be disappearing soon in the U.S. And it's one thing I had to look at is, okay, so what do I do? What do I actually work on? And that was the thing that I was really interested in. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm glad you were able to ask that question, Hoarder, because
Thank you.
and as a Canadian, I'm paying attention to what's going on. It's scary. You guys had the LA fires, like it feels like a week ago, but a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
But Eliah, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you a lot.
I know you're a busy man, and one thing I always say is you can never get the time back. So I really appreciate you taking that time to talk with us today in Super Hour. As usual, I always send the invite out that in 6 months to a year, I'd love to have you back on, catch up, see how you're doing.
Definitely, guys. Definitely.
Have this conversation again and again and again. We'll carry that on. But Eliah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
With that being said, this has been an episode of Super Hour with Eliah Mountain of Joy. He's going to change all his social media handles now because that's going to catch on. T-shirts coming soon, I promise. Awesome, Eliah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.